John Key is telling us that he's hearing from people from Wanaka again and again and again about Easter trading. Why? Well, because places like Taupō and Queenstown are places that are designated holiday destinations. They get to open up over the long Easter weekend, Easter Sunday, for example. Places like Wanaka can't. So if you're in central Otago and you want to go and have a meal out on Easter Sunday, you go to Queenstown, you can't go to Wanaka. That's what they're talking about. John Key has come out saying that they are looking to address this. Again, he's saying that they want to kind of put it back onto the local body rather than a national decision, so the local areas can decide. I'll give you a quote from John Key. He says this: "It's one of those things where local government's in the best position to decide it, and it's the only way through that. If you can come up with something better, please let me know, but I've been looking at it for 14 years and haven't found one yet." Yeah, so he's saying, Central Otago, you decide.
Yeah, which is a fair point, I think, because that way the local authority could go to the people that live there on a permanent basis and say, what do you think? Should we be like our mates over the hill in Queenstown, or our mates up the road in Taupō, or do we just want to keep it status quo? Look at Warbirds over Wanaka, for example. Yep. Every 2 years, they have this event. Now that just brings in tens of thousands of people over the weekend. If I'm a business in Wanaka, I'm going, really? I can't open? Or if I do have to pay a fine, you know what happens though? The fine's so minimal. This is the way that they've been getting around it up until this point, which is why it's got to this point, is they're just going, well, if I can make 10 grand a day and then I pay 1 grand of that in a fine, well, I'll take the hit of $1,000. That's just the way I'm going to do it. So I think local authorities are in the best position to be able to do it. I can tell you it's a sore spot with Wanaka people. I can tell you that from first-hand experience. Well,
I have to say that this is my concern always around these. There's sort of 3 days left where the worker can go, I'm sorry, boss, I can't do it. That's Easter Friday, Easter Sunday, and Christmas Day, right? And that's it. And I know everyone goes, well, if they don't work, they don't have to, but we've all been in jobs, whether we were students or needed the extra cash or whatever it was, where the boss has gone, look, I really need you. I really need you, and put the pressure on. And we've all heard stories of people who have decided not to work for their boss that day, although they were entitled to it off, and then they suffered consequences later on. They missed the overtime, or something happened.
Because the request isn't explicit, but it's implied.
Yeah. So I'm not a fan of this. I don't want to see it changed, and that's the reason. We're talking 3 days a year. I hear what you're saying. I mean,
that's just from a business point of view, a business owner's point of view.
Well, of course, but Warbirds over Wanaka still has Saturday. They still have Monday.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm not saying. Look, it doesn't affect me personally, and I don't. If I can't go to a shop on a Sunday because it's not open and I'm in Wanaka, that's all right. I'll survive. I'll cope with that. Do you know what I mean? It's not going to be a big deal for me. I think people sometimes just get on a bit of a bandwagon. They choose sides and become a little bit too fervent in their desire for one outcome or the other. Where I think, seriously, as I said before, you get the local authority to canvass the thoughts of the permanent residents in that lovely little resort town, see what they think, and then go from there. If it's 50-50, just maybe have a debate about it. If it's overwhelming one way or the other, then there's your decision.
Well, the one other thing about this conversation which is interesting is that these sorts of votes in Parliament typically have been conscience votes. Whereas it's being said at the moment that the national MPs, when this comes up, are being told that they have to vote affirmative. They have to vote for the change in the law. So people like Bill English,
who doesn't like it,
who has already ardently said, I'm not in favour of this change, is going to be voting for it. I think there's another element to this conversation which will probably expand over the forthcoming weeks and months. But to have the government say, to have the leadership of the government say, this is going to be a conscience vote likely, you have to vote one way, also seems a bit on the nose to me.
Well, that's not a conscience. What is it? Is it a conscience vote, or is the vote being whipped?
Well, look, maybe it'll be the same thing. Maybe it'll be a conscience vote, but you've got to vote the way we're voting, and if they don't vote, the overtime won't be there. Do you know what I'm saying? It could be, because if the boss tells you to go a certain way, they might have to do it, and it's exactly the same scenario that if the boss asked you to work on the Friday afternoon.
How ironic is that?